What if I tell you that the most dangerous person in your life is not the enemy you see from afar, but can be the sister who eats from the same bowl as you? Watch carefully as this story opens our eyes to the reasons why some things must remain a mystery between you and your God. This is the story of Cynthia, whose kindness was met with the sharpest edge of betrayal by her best friend Priscilla. In the ever-busy streets of Lagos State, there lived two young women named Cynthia and Priscilla, who were inseparable, like the two halves of a cola nut. They had known each other since they were little girls, running barefoot in the red dust and sharing a single orange during the heat of the afternoon. Now they had grown into beautiful women, both 26 years old, sharing a small rented room in the heart of the town. Cynthia was a girl blessed with a peaceful spirit. Her father was a retired headmaster, and her mother a traitor. Although they were not wealthy, their home was filled with prayers and deep love for their daughter. But Priscilla's path was different. Her father had walked out on them when she was a toddler, leaving her mother to struggle alone. This gap in their lives created a hunger in Priscilla that nothing seemed to satisfy. The two friends were like shadows of each other. They did everything together. They fetched water together, they pounded yams together, and they shared their deepest dreams under the moonlight. People in their neighborhood often pointed at them as a perfect example of friendship, never knowing that a great storm was brewing beneath the calm surface. After they finished their schooling, both girls found work in a local distribution firm. The salary was small, just enough to pay for their room and buy a few wrappers, but Cynthia was content. She managed her little money with a smile, always saving a little for a rainy day. But Cynthia carried a heavy secret in her heart, a secret that kept her awake while Priscilla slept soundly. Before her father passed away a year ago, he had called her to his bedside. His voice was a thin whisper as he handed her a faded, laminated document. "Cynthia, my daughter," he said, "this is the original certificate of occupancy for the large plot of land I bought in the city center years ago. Keep it hidden from everyone, even your uncles. One day, the government will build a major road there, and this paper will be your gateway to a life of plenty." Cynthia kept that paper inside a hidden pocket of her old leather suitcase, telling nobody, not even Priscilla. She lived like a poor girl while holding a fortune, afraid that if the secret came out, the envy of the world would swallow her whole. While Cynthia held her father's document in silence, Priscilla lived her life differently. Priscilla loved the bright lights of the city and the attention of men who carried heavy pockets. She dreamed of the day she would leave their small room and move into a mansion with a golden gate. However, life was not smiling at her the way she wanted. While men would often stop Cynthia on the road to admire her gentle beauty and her calm character, they looked at Priscilla only as a passing flower. This made Priscilla very frustrated. She would look at Cynthia and ask, "My friend, why do you dress so simply? If you wear expensive lace and gold, you can attract the kings of this city." But Cynthia would just smile and say that her time had not yet come. What Cynthia did not know was that Priscilla was secretly seeing different men behind her back, trying to find a shortcut to the wealth she craved. She would collect little money from them, but it was never enough to change her life. Slowly, a dark seed of envy began to grow in Priscilla's heart. She wondered why Cynthia was always so calm and happy, even though their pockets were empty. She began to suspect that Cynthia was hiding something from her. One evening, after a very long day at work, the two friends sat on their thin mattress. Priscilla started crying, telling Cynthia that her mother was sick and they had no money for the hospital. She cried with such pain that Cynthia's heart melted. "Priscilla, please stop crying," Cynthia whispered, her own eyes filling with tears. "I have something to show you, but you must swear by the heavens never to tell a soul." Cynthia went to the corner of the room, opened her old suitcase, and pulled out the laminated document. She explained everything her father had told her. She told Priscilla that the land was worth millions of naira and that very soon they would both be living a life of luxury. I was waiting for the right time, but seeing your pain, I want you to know that help is coming, Cynthia said. Priscilla hugged her friend tightly, her mouth offering words of gratitude, but her eyes were fixed on the document. That night, while Cynthia slept with a light heart, Priscilla stayed awake. The secret she had just learned was like a fire in her brain. She thought about the millions of naira that paper represented. She thought about the cars, the clothes, and the respect she could buy with such money. Instead of feeling relief for her friend, she felt a bitter anger. Why should Cynthia have all this while I have nothing? She whispered to the darkness. The jealousy that had been a small seed was now a giant tree with poisonous fruit. Priscilla began to plan how she would take what belonged to Cynthia and make it her own. The days following Cynthia's revelation were filled with a strange kind of tension that only Priscilla could feel. Cynthia, believing she had strengthened the bond with her sister friend, walked with a new spring in her step. She was already making plans in her mind for how they would relocate Priscilla's mother to the city for better medical care once the land was sold. But Priscilla was busy moving in the shadows. She had a cousin named Johnson, a man whose hands were never clean and whose tongue was as slippery as okra soup. Johnson worked in the local land registry office, and he knew all the back doors and the people who could make a signature appear where it never existed. One Tuesday morning, while Cynthia was busy at the distribution firm, Priscilla claimed she had a severe headache and stayed home. As soon as the door clicked shut behind Cynthia, Priscilla went to the suitcase. Her hands shook as she pulled out the document that held Cynthia's future. She hurried to a small, dark business center at the edge of town where Johnson was waiting. They spent hours with the man who could mimic any handwriting, using old letters Cynthia had written to Priscilla as a guide. By the time they were finished, they had a perfect forgery of a sales agreement stating that Cynthia had sold the land to a mystery buyer for a fraction of its value. Johnson looked at Priscilla with a wicked grin. "This paper is ready, but we need a buyer who doesn't ask too many questions," he said. Priscilla didn't hesitate. She knew a wealthy businessman in the city named Chief Peter, a man who was known for grabbing properties before the government could claim them. Priscilla went to Chief Peter's office, pretending to be Cynthia's legal representative. She told him that her sister was in a desperate situation and needed to sell the land immediately to fly her dying mother abroad for surgery. Chief Peter, seeing the original document and the forged signatures, did not suspect a thing. He offered a large sum of money, half of what the land was worth, but more money than Priscilla had ever seen in her entire life. She collected the bank draft and felt a rush of power. She didn't feel any guilt. She only felt that she had finally taken what was rightfully hers. She returned the original document to the suitcase, thinking that Cynthia wouldn't check it for months. That evening, when Cynthia returned from work, she found Priscilla cooking a very delicious meal of jollof rice and fried chicken. Priscilla was laughing and talking as if nothing had happened, even buying a small gift for Cynthia to distract her. Cynthia was so touched by the gesture that she thanked God for giving her such a loyal friend. She had no idea that the very ground she stood upon had already been sold by the person she called her sister. As the weeks passed, the atmosphere in the small room began to change. Priscilla became increasingly restless, her eyes darting around like a person who had stolen a neighbor's hen and was waiting for the feathers to be found. She started spending money on expensive hair extensions and designer handbags, claiming she had found a secret part-time job as a consultant for a big firm. Cynthia, being a simple and trusting soul, believed her friend and even prayed for Priscilla's new success to continue. "God is finally answering our prayers, Priscilla," Cynthia would say with a genuine smile. But Priscilla would only hiss under her breath and turn her face away, unable to look into the pure eyes of the woman she had robbed. One fateful afternoon, Cynthia received a phone call that made her blood run cold. It was from an old neighbor who lived near her father's vacant land. Cynthia, my daughter, the man said with a shaky voice, have you sold your father's property? I see heavy tractors and many workers clearing the bushes. They say a big warehouse is about to be built there. Cynthia felt her heart stop for a second. No, Baba, I have not sold anything. There must be a mistake, she replied, her voice trembling. She dropped her phone and ran home as fast as her legs could carry her. She burst into the room and went straight for the suitcase. She pulled out the document, but as she looked at it closely, she noticed the stamp was slightly different and the edges felt too new. She turned to Priscilla, who was sitting on the bed painting her nails with an expensive bottle of polish. Priscilla, something is wrong. People are building on my father's land, and this paper looks strange, Cynthia cried out, her chest heaving. Priscilla didn't even look up. She just blew on her nails and said coldly, maybe your father sold it before he died and didn't tell you. Why are you shouting at me? The coldness in Priscilla's voice hit Cynthia like a physical blow. In that moment, the veil fell from her eyes. She remembered how Priscilla had stayed home that Tuesday, how she had suddenly become wealthy, and how she had been the only person to ever see the original document. Priscilla, did you do this? Cynthia whispered, her voice cracking with a pain that words cannot describe. Priscilla finally looked up, and for the first time, Cynthia saw the raw jealousy and hatred that had been hiding behind her friend's smile. And if I did, what would you do? Priscilla spat, her face twisting into a wicked mask. You were sitting on millions while I was suffering. I only took what I deserved. The land is gone, Cynthia. The money is in my name, and there is nothing a poor teacher's daughter like you can do about it. Cynthia fell to her knees, the fake document fluttering to the floor like a dead leaf. She realized that her greatest secret had become her greatest undoing. The betrayal of a friend is like a wound that refuses to close, even when the sun is shining brightly. Cynthia stayed on the floor for a long time, her tears watering the dusty floor of the room they once shared. She could not believe that the person she had shielded from the rain was the same one who had now set her house on fire. Priscilla did not stay to offer any comfort. Instead, she packed her expensive new bags, hissed at Cynthia, and walked out of the room, leaving the door wide open. Cynthia felt like her life was a vessel that had crashed against a rock. She cried until her eyes were red and her throat was dry, wondering how she would face her mother and tell her that her father's legacy was gone. That evening, Cynthia dragged her weary body to her parents' house. She found her mother sitting on a low stool, sorting through a basket of dried peppers. When the older woman saw her daughter's face, she dropped the basket, and the peppers scattered like red tears across the ground. Cynthia, my daughter, what has happened to you? Her mother asked, holding her tightly. Through broken sobs, Cynthia told the whole story. The secret she shared, the forged signatures, and Priscilla's heartless confession. Her mother listened in silence, her face growing solemn but not angry. She led Cynthia to the small altar in the corner of their parlor and made her sit down. My daughter, her mother said softly, you have learned a bitter lesson today. A secret is like a seed. If you plant it in the wrong soil, it will only grow thorns that will prick you. But do not think that God has forgotten you. She reminded Cynthia of the story of Joseph and his brothers, how they sold him into slavery out of jealousy, but God turned the evil for his good. Priscilla thinks she has won because she has paper and ink, but she does not have the favor of the Almighty. We will not fight her with insults. We will fight her with the truth. Cynthia felt a small spark of hope return to her heart as they knelt together to pray for justice. The next morning, Cynthia did not go to work. Instead, she went to the land registry office. She was lucky to find a senior officer, a man known for his integrity, who had been a student of her late father. When Cynthia explained the situation and showed her father's old letters and her own genuine identification, the man's face became very serious. He began to look through the files and found the forged sale agreement that Johnson had helped Priscilla file. He noticed the discrepancies that Chief Peter had overlooked in his haste to grab the land. "Cynthia," the officer said, "this is a very serious crime. If we can prove this signature is a forgery, the sale will be void, and those involved will face the law. The wheel of justice may turn slowly, but it grinds with a weight that no sinner can escape." The senior officer at the registry, Mr. James, initiated a full investigation into the suspicious transfer of Cynthia's land. He called for a forensic audit of the signatures, and within a few days, the truth began to emerge like a submerged log rising to the surface of a river. Johnson, sensing that the fire was getting too close to his own skin, tried to flee the city, but he was intercepted by the authorities at the motor park. Under the pressure of an interrogation, his courage crumbled like dry sand. He confessed to the entire scheme, naming Priscilla as the mastermind who had brought him the original document and the plan to deceive Chief Peter. While the law was closing in, Priscilla was living a life of false luxury in a flashy hotel on the other side of Lagos. She was busy spending the money she had stolen, buying expensive champagne, and hosting people who only loved her for the crumbs falling from her table. She thought she was safe because she had relocated from their old room, but she forgot that the earth has ears and the wind carries the smell of a crime. She was sitting by the hotel pool, laughing loudly and showing off her new gold watch when the police arrived. The laughter died in her throat as the cold steel of handcuffs clicked around her wrists. People she called her new friends vanished into thin air, leaving her alone with her shame. Cynthia was at home when the news reached her. Mr. James called to inform her that the fraudulent sale had been officially overturned by the court due to the proven forgery. Chief Peter, realizing he had been sold a stolen dream, was furious and withdrew his claim, turning his anger toward Priscilla to recover his lost funds. The land was once again legally and fully back in Cynthia's name. Cynthia felt a massive weight lift from her chest, but she did not jump for joy. Instead, she felt a deep sadness for the friendship that had turned into a graveyard. She realized that while she had regained her father's land, she had lost the person she once considered a sister to the demon of envy. Priscilla's mother came to Cynthia's house that evening, weeping and throwing herself on the floor. She begged Cynthia to withdraw the case, saying that Priscilla was her only hope and that prison would destroy her. It was a heart-wrenching sight that tested Cynthia's spirit to the very core. Cynthia's mother watched her daughter closely, waiting to see what she would do. Cynthia looked at the woman who had been like an aunt to her and felt a pang of pity. "Mama Priscilla," Cynthia said softly, "I have forgiven her in my heart, but the law must take its course so that she can learn that evil never pays." Cynthia realized that sometimes mercy means allowing someone to face the consequences of their choices. The trial of Priscilla and Johnson became a major topic of discussion in the neighborhood, serving as a bitter reminder that the shortcut to wealth is often a road that leads to a precipice. Priscilla was sentenced to several years in prison for forgery and grand theft, her beautiful face now hidden behind the rusty bars of a cell. The flashy hotel, the designer bags, and the gold watch were all gone, replaced by the cold reality of a life ruined by greed. Whenever Cynthia thought of her old friend, she felt a quiet sting in her heart, but she also felt the peace that comes from walking on a straight path. She had learned that while the world is full of people, true loyalty is as rare as a diamond in the sand. 1 year later, the government's plan for the new city center was finally announced, and the value of Cynthia's land tripled overnight. Unlike Priscilla, who wanted to spend everything at once, Cynthia moved with the wisdom of her father. She sold only a small portion of the plot to a reputable developer, earning enough to build a comfortable modern house for her mother and to start a foundation that provided scholarships for children of poor teachers. She didn't buy a flashy car or move into a mansion to show off. Instead, she stayed humble, using her wealth to lift others out of the same poverty that had once made her friends so desperate and bitter. Cynthia eventually met a kind and honest man named David, an engineer who valued her spirit more than her bank account. When they decided to marry, Cynthia remembered the lesson of her youth. Even with David, she was careful to build trust slowly, layer by layer, like a house built on a rock. She realized that love is not about telling everything at once, but about finding someone whose character is strong enough to carry the weight of your truth. Her home became a place of laughter and prayer, a far cry from the small, cramped room where jealousy had once tried to choke the life out of her future. If you walk through that neighborhood today, the elders still tell the story of the two best friends who were like sisters. They use the story to teach the young ones that your tongue is a small member of your body, but it can set your whole world on fire if you are not careful. They warn that the person who smiles the loudest at your success may be the one secretly digging a pit for you to fall into. Cynthia's mother still sits on her veranda, praising the God who turned a daughter's tears into a fountain of blessings. Cynthia's life became a living testimony to the power of faith and the importance of healthy boundaries. She understood that while forgiveness is a gift you give to others, trust is a trophy that must be earned through years of consistency and truth. As she looked at her beautiful family and the legacy her father had left her, she knew that some secrets are indeed better left between a soul and its creator. For in the end, it is not what we tell the world that defines us, but the goodness we carry in the quiet places of our hearts.